Cheguei com minha guitarra de tambor pra fazer logo notei em rock and roll. Cheguei.
Posso sair daqui, pra me organizar. Posso sair daqui, pra desorganizar. Posso sair daqui, pra me organizar. Posso sair daqui, pra desorganizar. Da lama ao caos, do caos à lama. O homem roubado nunca se engana. A lama do rio, é o rio Xie, andando de pra cá, e o Maratu, pra lá e pra cá, e o caranguejo, saiu do mangue e virou caminho. Hoje azul é nunca aqui, tamanha desgraça, quanto uma miséria tem mais um grupo, olha ela só. Pegou uma live na feira, o vato uma sintonia, passando uma véia, pegou a minha cenoura. Olha minha véia, deixa a cenoura aqui. Com barriga vazia, não consigo dormir. E com puxo na chega, comecei a pensar que eu me organizando posso desorganizar. Que eu me organizando posso me organizar. Que eu não me roubado nunca se enganar.
A polícia tem que estar presente, mas ela tem que estar presente de uma maneira, digamos, mais cidadã, mais humana, menos truculenta. Que ao mesmo tempo, nosso policial é um policial que é mal remunerado, que é mal qualificado, né? E que já sofre, talvez, é a profissão que sofre mais preconceito nesse país. É a profissão policial.
In this clip, you can see the violence that's prevalent in the favelas. It's the drug lords versus the government versus the police versus the corrupt police. It's very confusing. And the children that grew up in this are going to gravitate towards crime because that's all they've ever known.
This video also leads into Anderson Saw's pretty much source of, how else you could say this? Pretty much, in other words, the reason why he's doing what he's doing in the first place, because he himself is a victim of this violence. An example of this is how he lost his brother. He lost his brother to police violence. His brother was gunned down in the streets during a riot by police. So then you can see that violence really does affect the lives of the people in the favela in very distinct, different ways and results in very different things. Other people, they see violence and it's just like monkey see, monkey do. They see violence, they do violence. That's how it is. That's how they were brought up. That's all they've known. In other circumstances, like Anderson saw, they see violence, they're a victim of violence, and they work their life to change it.
All that Anderson Saw has is music, and that's all he's had. And he used this to unify the people of his favela as a common ground as which they can share ideas. It's comparable to the Black Arts Movement that was from 1965 to 1976. The Black Arts Movement was so successful because it inspired all different people of the African diaspora, and not only of the African diaspora, to communicate through art and share their opinions and just ideas. Afro-Latino people, Afro-Asian, and many others explore their creative sides by writing, drawing, singing about their experiences, their culture, and their background. The autonomy felt in the cultural sovereignty of the Black Arts Movement is what set it apart and greatly advanced the Black culture, because it showed that while we are a multitude of different cultures all grouped together under one unified name of being Black, we also are very different in different aspects. You can't generalize all people together as the government generalized all people of the slums. He's trying to show that everybody's different and that we as a people are different from those drug lords specifically in this instance.
Capoeira me ensinou que é na ribeira, carne de sol com pirão de macaxeira.
Mentality. What do you think about just police in general in the favelas?
Well, obviously, like it pointed out in the video, there is a big necessity for law enforcement, especially in the favelas, because it's a very impoverished area where there's drug lords that are basically taking over these territories, because the police aren't really doing much of their job. And the problem with the police is that they may be able to be successful in some of the things they do, but they're overexerting their power, and the brutality is almost it's jaw dropping. Like I could never see law enforcement in the United States act in that way without there being some type of penalty. And just to know that there are cops out there like that in Brazil is just fascinating.
Yeah, like John said, there's a requirement for some type of order in any social structure. But wherever there's power, there's people that abuse that power. And like you said, there's like drug lords that basically run the favelas. So what I think goes on is these drug lords actually buy the police and have them working for them. So then there's like a lot of prejudice that you see that goes on, that goes against not only like people of the favela, but like I think that probably not all the cops want to abuse their power. There are these corrupt cops, but they also feel if they don't follow along with what like the coworkers are doing, that they could be like criticized against, and all that prejudice will be geared towards them as well. So it's just like, if my team's with it, then I have to join this movement whether or not I agree with it, and it just adds to the crime in the favelas.
And then again, like the police they're underpaid, so right there and then it's very when they're given the opportunity probably by these drug lords, obviously they're gonna seize it. Like if you're being underpaid for the kind of work you're doing, clearly you're gonna seek that money somewhere else, and it's probably like for very desperate measures in those cases. And you also have to take into consideration since they're being underpaid, they're not going to want to do their job to the best ability. So clearly, I mean like a lot of issues that happen at home stem from money. So ideally when they come to work, they're probably not already in their best mindset. So obviously the results that you're going to get from the police is just not going to be positive.
Yeah, and to end it is that these corrupt cops, obviously they know what they're doing is wrong, but the fact that maybe they're getting paid by these drug lords to do whatever they have to do, the dilemma that's in their mind, knowing that they're doing wrong, it just makes them take out more frustration and act more brutal against the groups that they're being prejudiced against. So that just continues to perpetuate this bad treatment from the police.
So would you say that the brutality shown from the police is a factor when Anderson Sack calls for people for the revolution to, not calls people to the revolution, but groups people together to fight against this kind of violence?
Of course, because you would never just have, you would never be oppressed and expect not to just lay there and just, be a victim. You want to fight that because maybe you will not accomplish it within your lifetime to stop that, but you don't want that for your kids. So you want to fight and do whatever you have to do necessary to try and stop that as soon as you can, so that not only you, but your kids and your future grandchildren don't have to experience that growing up as well.
And just the force that the police are using is excessive and extreme. So clearly I think someone needs to step up if the government's not going to step up.
Agreed.
As Anderson Sack said, the government has no control in this matter. That's why they have a bone to pick with them.
Exactly.
This is an interview of Michelle Morales, Anderson Sack's fiance, and she's just going to talk about her experiences in the favela and her perspective on the movement and what's going on and what the work her fiance is doing with Afro Reggae.
Se tudo der certo, até o final desse ano, o começo do ano que vem, a gente está indo. Eu tenho, sim, muito medo da violência, de morrer, de como eu vou morrer. É mais isso, mais como você vai morrer. sei lá, pode ser atropelada, atravessando a rua, pode ser de uma bala perdida, indo trabalhar, porque não é só à noite, é de dia, qualquer hora tem essa violência. O Anderson realmente parece que não tem medo da violência.
Pra voltar pra lá. Perdi muitos amigos. O sentimento sempre foi de perda, de sofrimento, né? Hoje eu fico frustrado. Já chorei muitas vezes. Ao mesmo tempo que eu tenho essa tranquilidade, eu às vezes choro. Eu sozinho, eu em casa, ouvindo música. Por causa disso, eu lembro dos meus amigos. Esses momentos que eu vivi com eles. E, pô, eu queria tanto que hoje eles estivessem ao meu lado, vendo que eu hoje sou uma pessoa diferente.
So you just watched the clip. How do you feel about what Michelle was saying?
It's scary, the thought of waking up every morning not knowing if you're gonna die, or your kid not being able to run around the house or outside. And it's interesting because just because she's a black woman in Brazil and she lives in a favela, the government looked at her differently as they would look at a woman that lived in the city, which can be related to the black woman in the United States, how back then they did not have the same right as the white woman or the black guys. They would just look down upon.
Você tá fazendo o quê? Tá só estudando?
Estudar ruim.
Hã?
Estudar ruim.
É ruim por quê?
Porque a gente fica na escola o dia inteiro.
Ué, e aí? Mas tem que estudar pra fazer alguma coisa. Qual é o seu nome?
Não, bicho.
Richard?
Mentira.
Tem que estudar, pô.
É Murilo.
Ué,
Vai
Murilo.
acreditar nele ou em mim, cara?
Não, mas você deu papo reto, o maluco deu papo sangue bom.
Tu vai acreditar nele ou em mim?
Ah, não sei, Murilo, pô. Ficar de carro de dar pau pensando que eu vou te aguentar, você vai favela igual tu, é VG, pô. Hã? Quer ser o quê quando crescer? Ah, para de carro, não dá um papo desse. É mais nas câmeras. Que isso, quer ser trabalhador, porque não quer sofrer. Bandido morre cedo. Hã?
Morreu seis bandidos lá em Vigário.
Morre todo dia. Ser bandido não dá certo, não.
Todo dia morre.
O que adianta? Vai ter dinheiro, vai ter roupa, vai ter tudo, mas não vive. Qual o bandido coroa de 50 anos? Qual não tem? Morre tudo. O negócio é trabalhar, Murilo, pra andar bonito, cordãozinho. Pô, não roubou nada. Pô, para amor de Deus, não consegue roubar nada. Então rouba aqui meu relógio. Eu queria dormir. Para de caô, que esse papo de roubar, cara. Faz o nada, tu, meu irmão, não quer estudar, não faz o nada. Futebol, sim, com alguma coisa, cultura, tá ligado? Ah, que para de caô. Tá vendo aí, Richard Murilo?
So what do you think about that video?
It's sad to watch those little kids saying that they want to be drug dealers, because if you were to go to elementary school right now and ask kids in the United States what they want to be when they grow up, they'll probably say president, lawyers, doctors. And watching those kids, probably 8 years old, saying they want to be drug dealers is kind of scary. But I feel like it's a cycle, living in favela. You growing up around drugs and drug dealers, watching them steal, it makes you want to do the same by stealing and doing drugs and selling drugs. And it reminds me of slavery, because back then when a mother had a baby, the baby would be owned by the masters too. And it would just go through the same thing their parents went through, which is exactly what the kids in favela go through too.
Like victims of a vicious cycle?
Yes, they just go through the same cycle. And only a few of them survive. Only a few of them actually gets out of it.